radio listeners via St. Martin of Radio 107.9 FM, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, respective radio stations island-wide and online viewers. I'm Rolika Roach and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 9th, 2020. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Sylvia Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Rolika. Good morning to you. Good morning to the members of the press here present, those following via media. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. It is always my pleasure to be here with you, to be able to share pertinent information of our government service to the people, to ensure that you're up to date, to ensure that you're aware, and of course, to allow the media to ask the necessary questions. I address you this morning in great spirits. I did have a week off, which I must say was well needed. And returning back to work, of course, you meet all that you missed. So it's, of course, trying to climb back up a very steep ladder, but of course, with patience, dedication, and commitment to take each step at a time, we will achieve what we want to achieve in developing St. Martin. I continue to look for all opportunities with my dedicated Council of Ministers to share the remarkable progress and development of our beloved nation. We continue to prove time and time again that St. Martin, as a resilient, small island developing state, is a beacon of strength and ingenuity for all. Our government remains steadfast in its commitment to enhancing the quality of life for every individual on this island, and we have been working tirelessly to implement transformative policies. Of course, people cannot see and eat policies, but for us to do anything in government, we must have the legislative backing to do so, whether it's laws or policies. And so embarking on sustainable initiatives, fostering partnerships that will pave the way for a brighter and prosperous future as we try to attain the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you to all the citizens who inspire us daily. You don't know sometimes the little things you do that inspire, especially me, to continue to push for our tiny nation. Also, thank you to the media for your dedication to keeping our nation informed and for showing up here every week as well. We apologize for the challenges that we faced last week in not being able to bring you the press briefing, and hopefully we can mitigate future challenges such as those. Unfortunately, I also have to take time to extend condolences to those persons, families who are facing the loss of loved ones. Today, our deepest sympathies go out to the family and friends of Mr. Rene Arundel, who will be laid to rest today. Mr. Arundel was known as a father and great source of light in the community of St. Martin in his capacity as a driving instructor for many, many years. He was responsible for the application of road safety throughout the island. Many of his students for sure can attest to what they learned under his tutelage. Of course, his family, friends, and loved ones will also greatly miss him, and we bid him farewell. Throughout this past week, we have had quite some loss. I wasn't able to formally be there, but I would like to continue to add my prayers for strength to the families of Allison Boston, who was laid to rest last week, Miss Blondell Warner, who was laid to rest yesterday, and in the coming week, we will also have, tomorrow, I believe, we are laying to rest Miss Vernice Mardenborough, also a mother-grandmother of our civil servants, including one of our staffers here at CoM. So much strength to the family, much strength, prayers for strength and courage to the colleagues as well, and friends, and all who may have been impacted by those who have passed on. I must say that you get your shakeup, sometimes the person doesn't pass and they actually survive whatever may have hit them over the past couple of weeks. We've had some near misses as well, so I would also like to wish strength for the full recovery, also for our MP Bijlani and others who are going through procedures during this period of time, wishing you strength in that recovery, wishing your family and friends strength in that recovery, in supporting you. And I want us to all look at life really seriously and what we're doing. Take care of yourselves. I had a workshop the other day. Fill your cup. Ensure you're taking care of your health, your wellness mentally, as well as physically, and doing what you are passionate about. When you're doing what you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work. But rest and recreation is important. Lead a balanced life. Let those who have passed on and the impact they have made on our lives inspire us to be impactful. Yes, but you cannot give from an empty cup. So I implore us all to take care of ourselves. We also have congratulations, of course, with back to school. This week, 7th of August, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, some schools had a staggered approach. Today, Wednesday, some went to school for the first time as well. So I take comfort in encouraging parents, teachers, friends, family, and of course the students themselves to embark on this new journey in your educational life as seeing it as a challenge, knowing that there will be ups and downs, but it is not what happens to you in life, it is how you deal with it. What do you do? What is the next best step that you can make for your life? And I encourage the parents to remember that you are your child's first teachers. You are the ones that prepare them for the world and for the schools. And so please support them, continue to support them and the educational facilities as we empower your children with knowledge, with culture, with skills that they need to survive in this 21st century. I would like to congratulate the teachers who put that extra in, but also those who are just starting for the first time. Be inspired, be encouraged. You are impacting lives. You are actually shaping the future. To the management and staff also, congratulations to you and much success in this new school year. Continued struggles, yes, we face within education as it remains a changing landscape to meet the needs of our 21st century. And so we, for sure, as educators, have to remain lifelong learners and inspire them also to do the same. And within the community, thank you to all the community activists, the individuals, as well as the organizations who took the time out to do the necessary to help prepare many vulnerable students as well as schools to be able to have a great, bright start. It is the little things that we do individually and collectively that makes a difference. I want to single out Ms. Christina Hodge, who I knew did quite some assisting within the community, Your Voice, Your Choice Foundation, Minister Duran also with his group, as well as Shamir Khanna and so many others, the Lions Club, that actually went to 2 different schools to enhance the welcoming experience for the students, teachers, parents, and all those who are within the field. It is a start. We always focus a little bit on graduation, but it is what we do every day that will make that graduation as exciting as it should be. And, the looking out for the results. And I know that many were disappointed with their results last term. Use that failure, because failure happens to all of us. Use that failure to see what can I do differently to grow. We can't always just blame the other person. That is something as humans we always tend to do. It's this one's fault, it's the school's fault, it's the ministry's fault, it's whomever's fault, it's my parents' fault. Whomever's fault it was back then, there is still something you can do. And also always look for help in places where it can be found. So if you can't find it where you need it, look for it somewhere else. I'm sure people will reach out. So wishing you all much success for 2023, 2024. In other news, the Royal Decorations Committee is seeking nominations for 2024. As you know, for King's Day, we do the awarding of the nominations that have been put forward, the Royal Decorations. So the RODAC, the Royal Decorations Committee, is asking via government's website and others that you nominate persons. They should have at least 15 years of valuable service through meritorious work or achievements in their profession, through volunteerism, or through a combination of the two, with a great emphasis on personal merit and achievements of particular value in the community. Always after the fact, people are like, oh, but how come they didn't nominate this one? How come they didn't nominate that one? You nominate them. Find out from the RODAC at rodac@stmartingov.org, so that is RODAC at stmartingov.org, for more information on how to do so. There's also the website, of course, from the Kingdom that you can visit as well and submit your deadline. Your deadline for submission is August 31st. So you have a couple more weeks to at least start the process. I'm sure they won't cut you off. If you started, make the contact and they will give you the necessary assistance if you don't know the exact process. So wishing you all success in recognizing St. Martiners who are contributing heavily to the development and to our population. I'd like to also invite potential consultants, consultancies, agencies, as well as other bidders to submit an expression of interest for the project titled Establishing the Design, Operation, and Maintenance of an Early Warning System in St. Martin. The project is under the coordination of the Department of Interior and Kingdom Relations, also known as BUC. It is financed by Resembid and implemented by Expertise France. The project's aim is to provide technical assistance in creating a comprehensive framework and roadmap for the development of a multi-hazard, so all types of disaster, early warning system for St. Martin, which will lead us to then tender for the actual system itself. So this is a necessary step. Interested parties are required to provide a detailed motivation outlining their relevant experience, qualifications, skills, and professional networks related to the project. Further details about the required technical assistance can be found in the Terms of Reference, TOR, document entitled Establishing the Design, Operation, and Maintenance of an Early Warning System in St. Martin. This TOR can be acquired from the government building, the Department of the Interior Kingdom Relations, or requesting it via email from Secretariat EOC. So Secretariat, so IAT, EOC at stmartingov.org. An information meeting is scheduled for the 28th of August at 2 p.m. and at the government building, and the proposals must be submitted by September 11th at 5 p.m. Of course, this will be provided on our website, on our Facebook page, and via the media so that all persons will have this at their fingertips. We have noted that there is quite some weather that we've been experiencing, intermittent showers. There has been the passage of a tropical wave combined with favorable upper level conditions, which is expected to bring enhanced moisture and instability to our region, resulting in the isolated showers which we've experienced over these past couple of days. Some may be quite heavy looking out today, accompanied by thunderstorms, so do be cautious on the roads, especially in flood-prone areas. Remain alert. Always be aware of what's happening. Additionally, we have varying levels of Saharan dust, which continue to impact the air quality during the forecast period. So this is all from our meteorological department. I did ask for an update, seeing how the weather is and knowing that when it rains and there's school, there's always that question. So as parents, teachers, and the education community, please stay vigilant, especially in flood-prone areas. And if you have children or you yourself are prone to allergic reactions due to dust, take the necessary precautions due to the high levels of dust in the air. That's all for now, Relika, and I look forward to any questions from the media.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session, and Bibi Hot Shah of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Relika. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Prime Minister. My first question, can you give us an update on the cleanup of the civil registry? Has a date yet been set for election? And can you tell us how many registered persons we have?
Okay, yes, so we're still in the finalization of the process. As I'd mentioned before, I did promise that in August I'll be making the announcement, but as I just got back in on Monday, the process isn't complete as yet, so we do have to finalize consultations with our stakeholders, such as the main voting bureau, etc. And once we've received the feedback, then I'll be making those announcements. And then the other questions that you asked related to the number of, did you ask eligible voters or registered persons in general, which is then based on how many seats? Well, as I mentioned before, I didn't get an indication that it went any higher than the 15th, as I mentioned last month. and with the expectation of writing in and writing out that we have over the years on a regular basis, we don't expect that to change drastically. So I'll be able to update that once I've had the necessary feedback from our stakeholders, but within the next couple of weeks, we should be able to make that announcement.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Bibi. I would now like to invite Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Very good morning to you, Prime Minister, colleagues. I have a follow-up to that same question on the whole issue of election. Prime Minister, why is it taking so long to get a date for election? You did mention that you're still in the process, and you mentioned some things related to that. But why is it taking so long? And can you also shed some light? There are persistent reports that have been circulating of late that elections would not be held in January and actually sometime prior to it. It's very persistent. Can you
Probably
say
wishful
whether-
thinking.
Is there any truth to those reports? And can you update us on the whole issue of the refinancing of the COVID loans and the ENYA issue? Thank you so much.
Yes, why is it taking so long? There have been many changes within the organization, and for some, it is it's not the same people who have done it before. So we want to ensure to take all the necessary precautions. So we've consulted with the Legal Affairs Department, Civil Registry Department. The main voting bureau is also a new group of persons for the most part. And so we're ensuring that all I's are dotted and T's are crossed before making any announcements. So we've been in consultation. Again, it's been over the break. So during July and August, people are in, people are out, and so sometimes you have to wait on a response. So I am awaiting currently a response from my stakeholders, and we will be making the announcement. Contrary to what some out there, as I mentioned while you were speaking, I apologize for interrupting. I thought you were done. For some political parties out there, it may be wishful thinking. We've had the discussion. I was very clear and emphatic more than a month ago that elections are scheduled for January. The date had to be ascertained, looking at the laws, when they have to sit. We know for sure the new parliament has to sit by February 12th. I think I mentioned that before. And so then you do the calculation moving backwards, 80 to 90 days. So there's a 10-day space within which postulation will take place and the elections will take place. Also taking into consideration the time between the date of the election and the date Parliament has to sit. So there's, a scaling, a time that you have to play with there. So we don't want to announce something, then have to retract it, change it, etc. I want to be sure that we do it correctly. It's also my first time. We did do the elections back in 2019-20, but it was with persons who have experience in that. We're now dealing with a lot of new persons. We do have also and I've said this before, some departments that are missing persons, so we have to ensure things may take a little bit longer, but they're being done and it will be done in time for the elections of 2024. And your other question was about the refinancing of the COVID loans. I haven't had any update. The committees are still working. We were granted some extra time. Of course, the second chamber was on recess as well as some of the persons that we deal with in the Netherlands. So until they come back online, which I believe is next week, we will restart discussions on that level. But internally, at St. Martin, we're doing our due diligence, and I think we're close to finish.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Judy. Stephen Cerulean of PJDT Radio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to you, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, during the last press conference, you made mention that you were looking forward to at least having the date for the Kingdom Conference to be changed. Can you provide an update as it pertains to that subject matter?
Yes, St. Martin is represented in that committee as well. So that committee's discussion have continued through the break, and they're continuing to deliberate on dates. So, of course, we're dealing with a 4-part kingdom, and so dates that are good for one part may not be good for another part. So they're still in discussions as to the feasibility of the dates that we were discussing lately, which were in November. So I don't know what the final decision will be because we are still awaiting responses to the feasibility from the other stakeholders at this point. So the discussion is still ongoing. No final date has been established as yet.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Stephen. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Prime Minister, the last time you attended press briefing, we asked you about NVGEBE and the IT abnormality. You said at that time that you were intending to have a meeting. Can you give us an update about that? And Prime Minister, can you also tell us about the recruitment of the management team of NBGEVE? Based on the Articles of Incorporation, Articles 7 and 8, there is a violation. Article 7 says after 4 months, a management team has to be appointed, and it is the duty of the supervisory board to appoint the temporary manager. If I remember correctly, when the current TM was appointed, there was only 2 members of the board, and that appointment was made by the Council of Ministers. I'd like to know if the recruitment starts for the new team and the current status of NVGEBE.
Thank you for those questions and your concerns as well. Government of St. Martin, we did have an update from NVGB after the, let's say, the attempt that was made. We were, let's say, reassured that all of the necessary precautionary measures that had been put in place to avoid being negatively impacted by an ICT hack actually worked. The necessary triggers went up, and therefore no actual data was lost. The time, of course, was lost, but it was necessary time to ensure that there was no negative impact, and they were able to resume work. So that was confirmed, that the attempt was thwarted. There is still an investigation to be finalized, which is ongoing, and we are satisfied with the steps that have been taken by the interim management at NVGEBE with the team that he has there, Mr. Washington and his team. We also requested information as to the way forward, how are we doing, and the process is being followed for the recruitment to start for the management or a permanent management team. But in the interim, the temporary manager is authorized to carry out the necessary with the mandate of the current supervisory board as well as shareholder. So as such, the process is ongoing, and we will await the updates from the supervisory board in that regard. But we are in constant contact, and we will be updated as things progress.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister, on the same issue of GB, currently bills are not being issued consistently at all. Even prior to the recent incident that GB has. Is there something going on there? Can you enlighten us as to why? Why is it that 1 year, more than a year after the hack, bills cannot be issued? What exactly is going on at GB to cause that?
So in the update we received, we were made to understand that, let's say, data provided last year this time, so as to how far they were in recovering the whole invoicing and billing system were inaccurate. After further discussion, it was much further behind than that, and they're currently about 75% recovered. So there are 25% of, say, clients, could be businesses or citizens, that are still not receiving bills, but they are diligently working on that. It became challenging because, let's say, garbage in, garbage out. So when you make mistakes in inputting information, or you don't use the same format, if you have several people inputting information into a system and it's not the same format, then you end up with challenges. So a lot had to be redone, which is being done, and is being done meticulously. And for those that they still have challenges, then they have to go completely back. They may have to call you in to bring certain things to collaborate or corroborate what information is in there. But we have asked NVGEB to also be a little more proactive in ensuring to inform the citizens as to where they are, what's being done, and I look forward to them doing so as well.
Thank you. If I may ask a follow-up, please. When is this whole issue of the inputting of the additional 25% expected to be resolved? And a lot of people are not paying because they are not receiving bills. So how is this whole thing affecting GEB financially?
So they have seen an uptick in again, being 75% now, whereas last year this time, so I can't say where it was, but it was a lot less. Maybe it was opposite. Maybe they were at 20-something% at the time. So they hope to have it resolved within short. I can't give you a date because they have not given me a date. It is a slow and meticulous process, and when people receive a bill, then they still come in, maybe challenge, etc. One or two people have mentioned to me that they are receiving bills, but an earlier challenge still is a challenge. You understand? In terms of reconciling what may have happened at a particular time. And I believe the time of the hack at that time really did wreak havoc on, information from the year previous, 2021 to 2022. So there was a good backlog of a year that had to be re-inputted, so to speak. So it's quite a lot of information for all of the vendors. And so I would like to encourage, as I have each time, at the end of the day, encourage persons to at least pay what you used to pay before, because you have not. And if you haven't been paying, then you will definitely end up on a list to be cut, because you are being provided with electricity consistently, despite all the challenges that GEBE has faced. And I know for some that's small consolation, but in some countries of the world, you consume, you pay a standard amount every month, and at the end of the year, you're reconciled. So it's like, how you call that? Similar to when you do with your phone, like a top-up type of a system. So I think we're moving towards more digitalization. We're moving towards, and of course, with digitalization, you run the risk of ICT challenges. But I'm asking the people of St. Martin to bear with our one and only electricity company. They are getting things on par. At the end of the day, it's a human resources that they have to use, the hard workers at NVGEBE, as well as some others that they have brought in to assist in getting this process finalized. And they are seeing great improvement. So I look forward to it happening as you and the rest of the community sooner rather than later. And I implore NVGB again to continue to update the population to get these questions answered on a regular basis. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Judy. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Prime Minister, mid of August is quickly approaching. That means the peak of the hurricane season. As chairperson of the EOC, and based on your assessment of the state of readiness, would you therefore say that St. Martin is quite ready in the event of a hurricane?
Well, we continue, Stephen. Thank you for that question. Yes, the hurricane season lasts a long time. And we started earlier than June 1st, which is the official start. From in May, we were already experiencing challenges. And now, of course, everyone can tell how hot it is. We are experiencing quite, I guess we forget every year how hot it gets, but it is hot. So I'm saying, first of all, take care of yourself. Ensure that you're hydrating properly. Government's website has been updated. The hurricane is at the front. The hurricane preparedness is at the front. You can click on that link, and do ensure that as individuals, as families, businesses, institutions like schools, churches, and the like, that you are well prepared, that you have a disaster plan, you have a hurricane plan, an evacuation plan if necessary, and that you have the needed medication for the vulnerable, as well as whatever you may need. As Government of St. Martin, our ESF coordinators are as prepared as we usually are. We continue to grow. They've received some training. We're doing community training as well. I did update a couple of weeks ago. The press statement was out there, but I'm super proud of the Ministry of ESF 6 and 7 community development have really gone out in the community, and we have trained a big cohort of trainers who can now train more people. And that is the way we continue to grow. I think St. Martin will one day definitely become the hub for disaster preparedness. And we're doing everything we can to ensure that we are fully prepared for any eventuality, but we will continue to pray that St. Martin and the rest of the region is spared, because we are still in recovery.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Stephen. We now move on to the third round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thanks, Rolika. Prime Minister, can you tell us when is the remuneration law, Article 8, when will the amendment be made so that civil servants can become compensated accordingly? For example, the current management team of facilities. And can you also tell me if the Council of Ministers took a decision to levy a fee towards passengers at the harbor for economic development? And can you give an update on that?
I'll answer the first part and then I'll ask you to repeat the second one, if you don't mind. The second question. For the majority of people, mostly the civil servants will know what I'm talking about, but the bezoldigingsregeling ambtenaren, known as the BRA, is the law that regulates hiring, firing, etc., the remuneration of our civil service. We've been having some serious challenges ever since I came in, requesting that we need to do something differently. A lot of civil servants felt disadvantaged, especially when working already in a function and applying for another. The policy was being applied in a manner that was a bit punitive. And no matter how we tried to resolve it, it did not get resolved. So we have been working over the past years, actually, back and forth in discussion with all of the legal heads. And when you have 5 legal persons in a room, you get 5 different discussions, to tell you the truth, points of view. And I respect them because that's their thing. But finally, I can say that after a lot of discussions, again, on this whole legal issue and how we can do it, a minor adjustment can be done. And I'm in the process of doing that together, presenting an advice to the council next week, which will then amend the manner in which that is done. That is just for Article 8. So we're not going to be applying the Article 8 for persons who are civil servants already applying for functions. They should not be disadvantaged. It should be a seamless. They are just someone applying for a job. So that shouldn't, hurt their position or have them receive a lower pay than someone else who would be coming from outside. There are several other discussions, though, that we're having with the CCSU because this entire law has been under discussion for years. So there were several points that we'd already agreed upon between government and the CCSU. So a proposal has been submitted to them, I believe, early this week or last week, confirming what we already agreed upon and some other proposals that had been made in our last meeting. We didn't come out and say anything publicly because we agreed with the unions that we would do that after the consultation. So I don't want to go into any detail, but Government of St. Martin, we have put together a negotiation team to sit with the union's negotiation team to come to an agreement where we can move forward. Also addressing, because I must say our employee survey did reveal what we suspected were some of the challenges that our civil service experience, and so we're trying to address some of those. Of course, we have to be realistic because of budget constraints, and I must say that the union is also being very understanding in that regard. So we're putting our heads together also to come up with ways between the unions and government on generating new revenue so that we're able to afford the needed increases that we would all like to see. Because as government is not a fight for us. We would also like to remunerate with pay, salaries, according to the market, according to the cost of living. So cost of living is necessary, the indexation, all of those discussions are the discussions, the topics that we want to also address, and we are in good discussions with the unions to do so in a manner that is manageable financially while we seek other sources of income to be able to afford the needed changes so that we can attract quality workers as well to execute the work as a growing nation, because the turnover has been really too great. And so we must do better to make our working conditions more acceptable, more beneficial. So in the past, where people would take a government job for security, persons are leaving even though it's a secure job. You know, we were definitely one of the employers that continued to pay during the pandemic. We didn't cut any salaries per se. Some benefits, yes, but not the salaries. And so you can say you have a level of security with a government job, but That is not our goal, not just to provide security, but to provide a working environment where our employees are happy, are productive, and therefore can give the great service that we need to give to the people of St. Martin. So we're a work in progress, but we're taking the necessary steps.
My second question, has the Council of Ministers taken a decision to issue a levy on passengers arriving at the harbor for economic development? If so, can you give us an update on that?
I really wouldn't be able to give you an answer on that. So I will pass that to our Ministry of TEAT, I believe. But I do know that we had taken a decision some time ago to establish a working group to look at all manners of, archaic fees that we have in place to be able to collect, charge for services that are being done, looking at things that we do for free even as a service that can be charged so that we can, as I said before, become more financially sustainable. Simple things like within the Ministry of General Affairs. So each ministry has to provide persons to provide information, look at what we're doing in terms of fees, etc. And so it might be incremental, small areas, not going to touch every single person, but it is also only fair because everyone expects us to give out the service. To be able to give the service, we need to have the fees. So for instance, inspections, the fire department inspections are done free of charge at this point. So from General Affairs perspective, that's one of the areas that we're looking at, charging for the inspections that the fire department does for businesses and other institutions, et cetera, and trainings that they would give as well to the persons in fire safety, et cetera. So that's just basically one little aspect in General Affairs, but all ministries are looking into the services that we render to see what can be done to be able to generate the needed funds so we can take care of the people of St. Martin.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Bibi. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister, the Chairperson of Parliament is currently out after undergoing a major surgery, and Parliament resumes as of Monday, which means that at the moment, while that MP is recovering abroad, there is no majority for the coalition. What are your concerns on this in terms of if government has a law to pass and there are quite a few meetings that are backlogged? What are your concerns over the fact that there is no majority and there are laws and other things to be passed? Also, you had mentioned last week that a decision has been made during the final stages, rather, of the appointment of an acting governor. Can you say when this is expected to be finalized, and is it a male or female candidate? And if you can release the name, I would be very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions. The majority in Parliament that supports a government, of course, is needed when you have laws, et cetera. You want to maintain that challenge. I mean, we did have the situation also recently where MP Marlon was out for a while as well. I believe what I've seen in terms of our growth in St. Martin is the maturity level within the members of Parliament and what is good for the country. And I must say I've had that discussion with several of them that they continue to do what is best for the country. I do not think, especially going into an election year, that you can, especially if you're going to run again, condone the behavior that you're going to stay out and not give quorum just because, oh, well, where's your majority? Show me your majority story. This is a game that sometimes is played, but the game will be played in full view of the public and with the necessary consequences, I hope. We are in the last few months of this governing term, and so I ask the members of Parliament to, we all want to achieve, whether it's laws, legislation, etc., and if we do not then get the needed quorum to pass the legislation, then we will deal with that. But I expect that the members of Parliament will act in the best interest of the people of St. Martin.
Okay. And I also asked about the...
And I also wish MP Bijlani, of course, much strength in his recovery. We will know when he returns how soon he's actually able to work. He is aiming to be back here by the end of the month. And so I look forward to hearing from him and wish him well with his recovery. But of course, as I said in the opening statements, we have to ensure to take care of ourselves before we can give back. So I would want him to make sure he's well recovered. And you had another question?
Yes, the acting governor.
Oh, yes. The process is that I have to submit the names to the state secretary, etc., or resubmit the name with the new names. And I do not want to divulge anything until it's final, just like I did the last time. I did not divulge anything in my previous processes, and I respect the integrity of this process. Once it's finalized and I have an approval to move forward, then I will make the announcement.
Can we expect a first female governor?
When I am finalized with the process, I will inform accordingly.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Judy. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Prime Minister, you said names. How many names? And
Well,
let
the
me,
process requires us to submit 2 names, so that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Can you provide an update on the Slavery, Atonement, and Reparations Committee's work, Prime Minister?
I must say that I haven't been able to read the report yet. It did come in during my absence last week, and it's high on my list of priorities, but I'm already Wednesday and haven't been able to read it. So we're having a meeting with the committee next week. So I do have to prepare for that meeting, and then after we've met with the committee, then I'll be able to give a better update. But it remains, I mean, a lot of people are interested, and that is great, that as a community, we are interested in what is coming after the comma. And as St. Martin, and remember, it was nowhere on our horizon. This morning, I took a little tour in our archives. We talk a lot about our archives and what we have and what we don't have. We don't have a national building for it. We don't have a national museum, and those are still our goals. But there's a lot within our archives. I must thank the hardworking civil service in DIV. They will have a greater focus on archiving moving forward. They are digitalizing the archives in a process that has just is about to start or just started. But it will be a long process, and we have a lot of documents, pictures, etc., from government that is available there, as well as within civil registry. And we are on a trajectory to really digitalize as much as possible so that we can save it forever. But it's important that we're able to share that information, not just have it. So what comes after the comma is of tantamount importance for the people of St. Martin in recognizing our true history, in learning as much as possible about it, to be able to share it. The discussion is coming up. If there are artifacts in the Netherlands, where will they be stored? What will happen with things that are relevant to St. Martin's history that's not in St. Martin? So we must be able to determine, we want to be able to have national archives, a national museum where we can see, learn about our history. That's a goal. But there is a lot more that it touches besides heritage and besides culture. Our education systems, our judicial systems, all of that, our economic development and our development as a country has been impacted by our slavery past. And by facing that history head on, by facing the consequences thereof, and what is owed to this country in terms of development, in terms of to the families, in terms of across the board, is going to be a question or discussion that doesn't end with one report, doesn't end with one discussion, and what comes after the comma will take a long, long time. So I'm very interested to see what the preliminary report of this AXAR committee is, what steps they're taking to formalize the association so that they can, on their own, request, even though government established them, they can then establish their own foundation or association through which they can then access funding to be able to do more research, to be able to assist St. Martin on the way forward. So I'm as excited as you, if not more, to find out where we're going with this, because it is an opportunity for St. Martin, with the apologies that have been rendered, to get what is due to this part of the world.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Stephen. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Prime Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Prime Minister, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telem's Tel TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Rochin wishing you a pleasant day further.